Exclusive. Refugees on the run and off the radar.
35 asylum sneakers.
Here we are, episode 5 already, and not a single Daily Telegraph beat-up all year. Time to fix that up. Welcome to Mediawatch, I'm Jonathan Holmes. The telly's asylum sneakers splash was perfectly timed on the Saturday after all the hoo-ha about Christmas Island detainees being brought to that funeral in Sydney. It kept the whole topic nicely on the boil.
Dozens of asylum seekers are on the run, with fears they are being supported by underground networks.
Whose fears? Need you ask?
Clearly there is a network of support that exists that should be investigated, said the Coalition spokesman on immigration, Scott Morrison.
The story got a run in News Limited papers and radio news bulletins from Adelaide.
Dozens of asylum seekers are reportedly on the run, with fears underground networks are helping them to hide from the authorities.
To Brisbane.
It's claimed dozens of asylum seekers are on the run, assisted by people running underground networks.
But of course the story was a classic telly beat-up. Yes, 47 people did escape from immigration detention centres in the past year, and only 12 of them have been recaptured. But as the telly sheepishly admitted 5 days later in a
clarification
buried at the bottom of page 56,
none are asylum seekers. They were in detention for a mixture of other reasons, including being caught illegally working in Australia and overstaying their visas.
Bet you thought they were boat people, didn't you? From Asia. Talking of Asians, that old relic John Laws, who's hauled himself back onto the airwaves like a 21st century Lazarus, was telling his listeners last Tuesday about a driver he'd seen that morning.
And I hate to say it was a woman driver, and it was an Asian woman driver, and she was from one lane to the other. I think she was putting on lippy or mascara or something, which is a bit of a waste of time if you're Asian, because you haven't got too many eyebrows to put the mascara on.
There seems to be something wrong with the golden microphone, doesn't there? But you get the picture. A few seconds later, Lawsy corrected himself. He'd meant an eyebrow pencil, not mascara. Then he went on.
I remember my friend Ron Casey, he was taken off the air. I think he was on 2KY. He was taken off the air for a week because he said the problem with Asian drivers was they didn't have any peripheral vision. And of course, if you look at the shape of the eyes of Asian people, he may well have a fact. I don't know that it's ever been proved. Maybe we should bring an eye specialist and ask, is that true?
Well, of course it's not true. And just to be absolutely certain, we did consult an eye specialist. Do you have any idea how pathetic you sound, John, making your sad little racist jokes to a fraction of the audience you had in your glory days? Retirement was a much better idea. And now to more serious matters. In our first programme of the year, you may remember, we had a go at Channel 7, among others, because of this.
Circumstances are very grim out there on the streets of Ipswich and Brisbane. We are now in the grip of a very serious natural disaster, and you've all seen the images on your TV screens.
What we couldn't see was the interpreter turning what Anna Bligh had to say into Australian Sign Language. Plenty of deaf and hearing impaired viewers wrote in to say thanks for that item, but one told us that we were far from perfect ourselves.
Hey Mediawatch, how about getting your production right with the text captions for us with hearing problems?
What was Mr. Hooton on about? Well, let's revisit that first programme a few seconds from its start, with the sound turned down and closed captions enabled. This is what it looked like to the deaf and hearing impaired. Virginia's identity confusion happened way back in November, but she still seems to be a bit uncertain who's who. Just last week, she and Michael... Captions? What captions? Oh, here they are.
We also have this one. While I applaud Obama and Clinton's calls for democracy in Egypt, it does seem a little hollow given the USA's willingness.
As Mr. Hooton wrote, after many seconds without captions...
Suddenly, whoosh, we get a rush of captions to catch up what is being said. Then, hey, we get the captions ahead of what is being said.
Look and listen to this, for example. Vast resources were outlaid, hundreds of hours of TV and radio coverage, thousands of pictures and hundreds of thousands of words. A lot of it was excellent. Well, the closed captioning of that programme certainly wasn't excellent. Yes, the captions were being put to air live, but they were prepared in advance. A precise script was available hours ahead of airtime. It shouldn't be that hard to make the words fit the image and sound. The ABC's closed captioning is done by a company called CSI. We asked them what went wrong, but so far they haven't explained. But generally we're told the ABC's captioning is better than most. It's never easy to caption programmes live to air. Unavoidably, the captions are several seconds behind the sound and picture, but that's not the only problem. Here's a story about Paul Hogan that ran on 9 News last Thursday night. See if you can make sense of it without the sound.
Flew in to attend the 70th birthday party of his best mate, John Cornell. Tony Abbott has reacted with fury to a charge that he's involved in race baiting.
Could have sworn Cornell was more than 7 years old. That standard of captioning isn't at all unusual. Here's 10's 7 p.m. project discussing anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism.
Won't go away until we actually acknowledge the existence of real racism in our society.
I hope that survey's not true. I really hope we're not that racist, and I hope people overseas don't see that survey.
The captioning problem isn't going away either. It seems to be all about money. One company now provides captioning for Channel 7, 9, 10 and SBS. It's called Red Bee Media. It's majority owned by one of Macquarie Bank's investment funds, and its voice captioners are an unhappy bunch. One told us that captioning has
gone from a non-profit industry where the primary aim was to provide a good service for deaf people to a commercial company whose primary aim is to make a profit.
Another said,
I would not want to sit with my family and watch captions that I had prepared, knowing there were going to be errors every 10 words or so.
There are complaints that salaries aren't keeping pace with inflation, even though productivity has increased exponentially. A third captioner told us,
increased workload, lack of preparation time, and old software are the biggest problems. Morale is very, very low.
Under the Broadcasting Services Act, the free-to-air networks are legally required to provide
a captioning service for television programmes transmitted during prime viewing hours.
And for all news and current affairs programmes. In fact, they caption a lot more than that. But quantity is one thing, quality is another. As Deafness Forum of Australia points out,
poor captions are as bad as none at all.
And yet,
there currently are no legislated standards for captioning quality.
A recent government review into media access for the hearing and vision impaired has recommended that
the Broadcasting Services Act 1992 be amended to include a reference to captions of an adequate quality.
Big deal. Adequate quality. The regulator ACMA is now working with broadcasters and others to arrive at guidelines that would help it judge what's adequate and what isn't. But Free TV, which represents all the free-to-air networks, is opposed to any enforceable quality standards for captions.
We believe the voluntary guideline should be given a chance to work. A rigid or inflexible strict liability quality standard is not the best means to address quality issues.
But Deafness Forum points out that
the current guidelines have been voluntary and the standards have been slipping.
More and more programming is captioned using voice recognition software instead of highly paid stenographers. Captioners have too little preparation time and often can't see the pictures. Then the software puts captions to air word by word, which makes them much harder to read. It doesn't have to be like that, even in news bulletins. Look at this.
New Zealand rescuers worked all day yesterday and all through the night, racing against time to find those trapped. The exhausted emergency workers finally clocked off when international help arrived to take over.
Faultless, almost simultaneous, well-placed and easy to read. We've dished it out to 7 News a lot recently, but here's a plaudit. Red Bee Media does captions for 7 as well as for 9, 10 and SBS. But 7 insists that captioners have access to scripts and vision whenever possible and puts captions to air in easy-to-read blocks. No doubt they pay more for the service too. Unless and until they're forced to do better, the other channels will go on serving up media access like this. read the captions if you can.
Well drilled when it comes to an emergency response. This just one of the first of what will be many mercy dashes. Last night, 40 search and rescue experts boarded an RAAF flight for Christchurch. Along with them, 40 tons of aid, including sophisticated visual and acoustic search equipment. Foreign Minister Kevin Rudd said Australia would do all it can to assist.
Dashes indeed. Let's cheer ourselves up with another recent Daily Telly beat-up. Though it did appear only online, this one's a doozy, and it's almost as old as Lawsy's jokes.
A man was found dead in his apartment draped in spiderwebs, and more than 200 spiders, several snakes, thousands of termites and a gecko were feasting on his corpse. Mark Virgil, 30, was found dead in Dortmund, Germany.
Oh, yuck. Gruesome. So, when did this happen? No hint in the story itself, but we know it was at least 3 years ago. Look at this.
Pet creepy crawlies eat human owner. News.com.au, August the 29th, 2007.
And yes, it was the same unfortunate German.
Police found Mark Virgil, 30, in his apartment, partially eaten by his pet spiders, sun.co.uk reported.
Ah, the Sun. Gotta be true then, innit? And when did the Sun find out about Mr. Virgil? Let's see. Here it is.
Pet spider kills its owner. A man who lived in his own zoo was fatally bitten by a pet black widow spider, then eaten by the other creepy crawlies.
Hey, that's an even better story. Sure it's the same bloke? Yep.
Police broke into Mark Virgil's apartment.
And, when was this?
Published 27th of Feb, 2004.
Almost exactly 7 years ago. We asked the Dortmund police about Mr. Virgil's ghastly fate. They described it as
a hoax or urban myth.
All that is true is this.
In 2004, the body of a, at the time, 30-year-old male was found in a flat in Tucholsky Street in Dortmund. There were terrariums with spiders in the flat.
But the man's name wasn't Virgil, he didn't die of a spider bite, and no spiders, snakes, termites or geckos were feeding on his corpse. In fact,
apart from the facts stated above, everything is fabricated. With friendly greetings, Wolfgang Wieland.
And freundlichen Grüßen to you too, Wolfgang. Whoever originally did the fabricating, the story's been doing its job for years. According to the telly, one of its most read stories online last week was
200 giant spiders, termites feast on man.
Expect to read about the sad fate of Herr Virgil again in, say, 2014. It's known as clickbait. Lots more about captioning on our website. It's quite a technical business. And we've a new gizmo too for sending us tips, pictures and video. Take a look. Till next week, good night.